Hi, my name is Josh. I know what you're thinking. Why should I buy your book? Well, I'm glad you asked, imaginary person I'm talking to and probably don't even know. And we'll never meet up in my entire life. But oh well. The thing is, I've been challenged several times by people to ask, why would I want to buy your book? What particularly about your book is so interesting, or at least book series is so interesting that I'd want to go and say, hey, I'll spend my $4 on this. Well, I'm not sure if it's $4, just according to where you get it at. But the thing is, these are 10 reasons I can come up with why you'd want to go and spend your money on my book. And time for that matter. And they're not in any order, so don't worry about it. At least that aspect of it. So without wasting time, let's get into it. The first thing may sound like a drawback, but until I explain it, it's going to sound weird. The schizophrenic narrative. My best friend is well quoted in saying that the book is, or at least the book narrative is schizophrenic. But I make it all tie in very well. The whole story flows from one into the other. I have a philosophy. You can easy to understand, hard to explain. Which means by the time you end this book, you're probably going to have a hard time, or in this series, you're probably going to have a hard time explaining it to your friends. But there's a lot that goes on, and it flows very well through the stories. And all the characters seem to fit into the world, and all the stories seem to fit in around the main story. Because, usually one person tells a story, and then they have all the stories around it. I tell many stories to make the bigger story around the big. It's kind of backwards from the usual philosophy, or at least what I think is the usual philosophy of writing. Take Harry Potter, which I'm just mentioning. Starts off, all the stories, all the side stories are the ones that make up the the big story makes up the smaller stories. Well, my smaller stories make up the bigger story. Best way of putting that is that the story, or my characters don't react to the story. The story reacts to my characters. Okay, moving on to number 2. My characters are very interesting. I know that's kind of plain to say, but until you read them, you will not understand how interesting these characters are, because they're parts of my personality, but magnified and much louder. They also have inbuilt idiosyncrasies. For example, in my next release, I have a character that's based off narcissism, but based off not just that, but how someone once described me. They basically described me as very into yourself, but in a way that's supporting and helping of others. So basically humble narcissism, almost virtuistic narcissism. It's kind of a weird thing to explain, but it's like walking north and south at the same time. And this character can do that in that aspect. She's a very smooth contradiction. In fact, if I have to describe her, she is almost maternal in a certain way. I know that's the wrong word, but that's basically what I'm going to use here to describe her. Very family oriented, and she thinks everybody is awesome. Not just herself, but she's still narcissistic. So it's a very interesting complex I built right into the character. So we're now on number 3, the third reason you should buy my book. There's something more going on in the background. Because I know I say that this book is about cheating the fates. And yes, it's about cheating the fates, but there's a big plot twist, or heck, not just plot twist, it's full of plot twists, as far as I consider it. Well, not really full of plot twists, it's got enough, I guess you could say. In the next book, there's going to be a definite thing that makes things interesting. I'm going to introduce something that will just kind of go out there with the story and on. So I guess I can't really explain that one for any further, because there's other kind of twists in the story. But they're very original, though. They're very interesting. I guess it's a fresh take on what the fates are considered, or at least the original Greek fates, in which I made up my own. Number 4, in the second book, there is a completely other story. and which is why I call it dual sagas. There's two stories. And that would be the fourth reason you need to buy my book, is that it's original in how it did write itself. Basically, it's two stories around the same events, and the characters will swap from one story to another. So it has an original writing style, an original flow to it, which it still flows the whole way through. Number 5 is, I guess, the reason you should pick up the second book. You get to meet Atresha's adopted family. And no, she's not adopted. It's the other way around. You get to see the people she is fighting for. Number 6 is the only one of the very few sci-fantasy books. It's the only book I know of, well, not the only one, but one of very few books that has magic and science fiction in the same world. It doesn't try to explain off the magic, which is kind of explained in the story. Well, I won't mention why, but it just doesn't try to excuse it. Number 7 is the fates on this one are very mysterious for the most part. The main characters are thrust into a world where they don't know what's going on. In fact, I won't mention more than that, but they're thrust in this world, this very mysterious world that's well thought out and very creative. It's almost as if characters get a backstage pass to existence and some of its inner workings. Number 8, it's an anime-inspired story, but from an American perspective. Not that it's an anime, but it pretty much is very anime-inspired because since I was 5, I pretty much been thinking about the stories. And not coincidentally, this is the same time I watched my first anime. Quite inappropriate, nonetheless, for a person that was like, I don't know, it was 1984. I was 5, possibly. No, actually, no. 1984 when I was born. I guess it would be 1989, and I was 5, possibly. And I pretty much watched Saturday morning sci-fi cartoons on the Sci-Fi Channel. And the majority of what I've been watching since then is Japanese cartoons, anime. So, to say it's not heavily inspired by that and my writing style would be lying, but to say it wasn't from an American perspective would also be lying, because I'm an American. I mean, whatever perspective can I have? Number 9. This is going to be a surprise because I'm going to mention feminist frequency now. She has the Oscars and the Bechdel test. I'm going to butcher that saying right there. But my book completely passes that test from what I'm understanding. Well, what she's calling the Mo movie measure, it passes. Let's go over the rules. Has to have 2 women in it. Has to have 2 women that talks about something besides a man. And has to... Well, let me go back to it very quick. I'm back. That was it. That's all it had to say. But think about it. If you want to... the women in this movie, even though I wanted to be a movie. By the way, if it would be a movie, it would be awesome. So if you want a story with strong female leads, where it's the girl's story, pretty much this would be it. So if you're a feminist out here, I'm giving you a nod. Make this a movie. If you're not, it doesn't matter. You'll still get something out of it. Make it a movie. Whatever. Send me emails or whatever saying, hey, I want this to be a movie. Number 10 is, besides the fact of it being a well-written story, it's going to go on for a while. I'm going to treat it kind of like a release. Maybe I'm trying to suggest every 5 months, or every 4 to 5 months, possibly 3. But until I can get it down and get a steady source of editing, that's not guaranteed. But besides that, I guess, my book is called Truly Dual Saga. I didn't mention that before. It's on Amazon.com, and from what I'm understanding, it's going to be in more stores than that. But so far, it's going to take 4 to 5 months to be in other digital stores like Apple, Barnes & Noble, but I'm not sure if it's going to be there. So I'm not guaranteeing it, but I have published it through Book Tango, and they're saying it might be picked up. So that's it. You've been thinking with your head. That's it. Signing off. Talk to you later. Bye.